Odds for Super Rugby 2020. Again, kind of like the Six Nations, which I did yesterday. It's not that far away from the start of the Super Rugby season. We're just over a month away, which is pretty scary. The year is really ticking along. I thought we'll have a look at the odds for Super Rugby. I had a look at a New Zealand bookmaker and I've translated their odds from kind of decimals to percentages. I'll go over both in case you are into your sports betting, because you'll know what I mean. And if you're not, the percentages, I've converted them so the total is 100. Should be pretty understandable for everyone else. So I've got the magnets in the order of how the teams finished last season, or this season just gone. I mean, the 2019 season. Remember, it is the conference system, so Brumbies, although they had less points, are still ranked above the Hurricanes. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to plot these out based on last season's rankings. They don't seem to account for a lot for some teams, but for some teams they seem to be all too valuable. So we'll start working our way up from the bottom, I guess, and then we'll see where we finish. No prizes for guessing who is the favourite team to win Super Rugby this year. But in 15th spot, the least favoured team to win Super Rugby is still the Sunwolves. They are on 0.4%. Man, that's a funny looking four. But yeah, 0.4%. I guess it kind of makes sense. They generally get the wooden spoon in Super Rugby. So last season, that's $201 they are paying to win it all, which doesn't seem like that much, to be honest. Like, I would have thought that Sunwolves should be paying a fair bit more than that, because they're probably not going to win Super Rugby, and those betting numbers could be a lot more stretched out. But anyway, that is what it is. The Sunwolves are there. 15th they finished, and 15th they are in the odds for next season. The Reds likewise kind of match up with their result from last year. I'll try to get that number written a little bit better. 1% chance for the Reds to pick up the Super Rugby title. That's $81 they are paying. They finished 14th. I feel like they are probably a better chance than 14th, but they're still not going to win Super Rugby, so it's kind of irrelevant where they're at. But yeah, I do hope the Reds do a bit better than they did, and hopefully they can threaten some of these teams in this area. I'm not saying they'll get this far, but if they could at least push their way up the table a bit, I think that would be a good return on investment for the effort that Brad Thorne has been putting in. There are three teams all paying $41, or with a 1.9% chance. That is the Waratahs, 1.9%. It's also the Sharks, 1.9%. And it is also the Bulls, 1.9%. The Waratahs one I kind of get. That sleeve keeps riding up. Weird. The Waratahs one I can kind of understand. New coach. They've lost a fair few of their experienced players. They're a bit of an unknown quantity. They finished last season on a bit of a low. 12th spot it was for them last season, and with the guys leaving, it doesn't look like it's going to get better. It looks like it's going to get worse before it gets better, and I kind of get that rating. Again, hopefully they turn it around as well, but it doesn't look all that likely. These two teams, I feel like, are probably largely connected to that exodus of South African players. I mean, they've lost Pollard, they've lost Ludiaka, they've lost Skulk Brits. The list, Achias Neyman, really does go on. These guys have lost the three Dupree brothers, Akker van der Merwe, Connie Oosthuizen. Again, the list goes on. So perhaps that is part of that. I think there's a bin coming up my driveway. Hoorah. There's two teams with a 3% chance. That's these guys, the Rebels, and that's these guys, the Brumbies. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all the Aussie teams accounted for, including some all the Aussie conference teams. So the best one against the Brumbies and the Rebels equally with a 3% chance of winning. I mean, the Brumbies finished third last season on the conference. It would have been lower without it, but I still thought the Brumbies were a decent value. They weren't a shambles. They weren't, I think it was Larkham's last year when it was really, they were quite poor. I think they might have even finished below the Blues on points, but they still made the playoffs, whereas I thought last year the Brumbies were actually pretty solid. They knew what they were good at, and they performed it pretty well. So 3%. Again, I'm not sure how much of a difference it makes, but yeah, the Rebels, they always look like they're going to be good at the start of the season, and then they kind of fall off the map in the second half of the season. So we'll see how they sit. They finished outside the playoffs again last year. They finished 11th, so again, it was a bit of a disappointing one. They got a bunch of players leaving as well, so one to watch. Next, 3.4% chance is the Lions. And I do kind of find it interesting that the Lions are ranked that much better. I mean, it's only a small margin, but sorry, I haven't been going over the decimals. So the Sharks, the Bulls, and the Waratahs are all paying $41. The Rebels and the Brumbies, $26. The Lions are at $23. So for 3.4%, I mean, it's not quite double, but the Lions have lost a bunch of players too. It's only really the Stormers that, and notice they're not on the board yet, the Stormers that have kind of retained their core. So I do agree that if there is a South African team, it is going to be the Stormers. They've got a new coach, and as I said, they've retained like the likes of Peter Steph, Tutoy, Sio Khaleesi and whatnot. So yeah, it's interesting that the Lions are maybe on recent history, not the last season where they finished outside the playoffs, but the couple of years before that where they've been making the finals. So yeah, interesting one with the Lions being where they're at. Speaking of the Stormers, 4.2% for them, so paying $19. And as I said, basically they retained the core of their squad. So yeah, they didn't bleed players as much as some of the other South African teams. So Stormers have underperformed the last couple of years under Robbie Fleck. New coach. See if they can get any better. So that's all the teams who didn't make the playoffs, except one. And then all the rest are teams who did make the playoffs last year. So yeah, we'll keep on trucking. Next on 6.6%. It is the Highlanders. Yes, the Highlanders are ranked lower than the Blues by the bookmakers. 6.6%. They scraped into the playoffs last year on 8th. Yeah. So we will see. They have lost a lot of players. I think I ranked them pretty low in terms of the transfers. They've lost a lot and not brought as much in as some of the other teams. And that's interesting because that would make them the wooden spooner of the New Zealand Conference, which hasn't happened to anyone but the Blues for a long time. As a Blues fan, I'm kind of not counting any chickens on that because I think the Highlanders, just because they haven't signed any big names doesn't mean they won't be able to put in some big performances. But yeah. Then we get to the Blues on 7.9%. The Blues, the team who hasn't made the playoffs in such a long time, are apparently the 5th favourite to win Super Rugby. They can't even make the playoffs. This is my team. It's been a painful many, many years. And you're trying to tell me we're this high. Maybe it's just because Auckland is a bigger population centre and more Aucklanders put money on the Blues that it skews the bookies' odds. That's the only thing I can think of. It's that Blues mentality of the fans that it's going to be our year. We all think like that. And they're putting their money where their mouth is, apparently, because those odds seem a bit screwy to me. But other Blues fans will have to let me know. I know we've signed Bowden Barrett and whatnot, so yeah. Next is the losing finalists from last year, 4th favourite. The Hawares are on. That's a horrible 8, and it's a a nice twin for him. 8.8%. Fourth favourite, finished second last year, looked really good value. And in that video I did about the transfers, their squad's looking pretty stable compared to some of the other teams, especially the teams in the South African Conference. So they could be in a good place. Let's hope so for the competition. Third favourite, 13.2% for the Hurricanes. They were a pretty strong qualifier last season, but couldn't quite get it done. 13.2%. New coach, kind of last minute changes. Lost of Bodie Barrett, losing Adi Savia for the season, not for his contract, but just due to injury. Yeah, it's a tough one for them. But interestingly, not second favourite, third favourite. Second favourite is the Chiefs with 18.8%. Second favourite, partly that has to be the Warren Gatland factor, I think, with New Zealand punters anyway, because there's a New Zealand bookmakers odds. And yeah, maybe Damian McKenzie coming back into good health. Remember, Brody Retallick's off in Japan, so it will be one to watch. But the Crusaders, and I've been forgetting to mention the decimal odds again, with 24%, so paying $3.30. Are your favourites. So Chiefs at $4.20, Hurricanes at $6, Jaguares at $9, Blues at $10, Highlanders 12, Stormers 19. That should round everything out. Lions 23. So Crusaders are your favourites. Fairly heavy. I think $3 for the Crusaders. They have lost a lot of players, but that's not too bad a bet. I think the Crusaders could do it again. They always seem to bring through players. They got guys like Will Jordan, who is just an absolute young talent machine who can't always make the squad week in, week out because it's so competitive. So those are the odds for Super Rugby 2020. Heavily favouring the New Zealand teams. And I did check another bookmaker just to make sure it wasn't totally out of whack, and a non-New Zealand bookmaker, and it's all much of a muchness. It's not much different. So yes, the New Zealand teams are heavily favoured. Even the Blues, for some reason. South African teams have all dropped, especially these guys have dropped a fair bit based on, I guess, the amount of players they've lost. Stormers kind of holding. Reds and Sunwolves not favoured to do much. Likewise, the Tars are also kind of lacking a bit. But you guys let me know your thoughts. Any of those bets sound appealing to you? Any of them particularly good value or poor value? I wouldn't be putting my money on the Blues if I was anyone, as much as that hurts me to say. Maybe the Jaguares, based on the fact that their squad, as I said, hasn't changed drastically. They have lost a few key players, but not a whole squad, paying $9. But, Super Rugby is not too far away. That's an exciting thing. You guys let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to you again soon. See you later.